Good afternoon. How's everybody today? Thanks for coming out on this hot day. It's like, remember when you went to the movies, like when you were growing up on a really hot day, just sit in the air conditioning? Well, that's what we did. So here we are. Thank you, Florence, and good afternoon. My guest is one of the theater's most sought-after classical actors. As an associate artist of the Royal Shakespeare Company, he received 2 Olivier Awards for his titular role of Henry VI in parts 1, 2, and 3. Additional theater credits include the National Theatre's Hedda Gabler for director Ivo van Hove, the Public Theater's Hamlet, King Lear opposite John Lithgow, Antony and Cleopatra, Theater for a New Audience's Tamburlaine, and the Old Vic's Richard III. On television, he is currently seen on the Sundance TV and BBC series The Split. His past TV work includes The Blind Spot, Crossing Lines, Madam Secretary, Doctor Who, Wizard vs. Aliens, Casualty, and The Slave Trade. His films include John Wick Chapter 2, opposite Keanu Reeves, A Woman Apart, Fall and Rise, and the Netflix film Barry. He most recently starred as John Blanke in Bruce Norris's play The Low Road at the Public Theater, which garnered him the coveted Obie Award for his electrifying performance. And now he can currently be seen starring as a title role in Othello for the Public Theater's Shakespeare in the Park. Please welcome Chukwudi Iwuji. Welcome.
Thank you.
So you are electrifying as Othello. How did this role come about for you?
It sort of fell in my lap, which is wonderful. I was filming a film of King Lear in London last year, and because I think there's always a slightly the universe sometimes gets involved with some of these things. You can strive for stuff and never get it, and then you're having a cup of tea in the morning, and the biggest job of your life falls in your lap. So I was filming Lear in London, and on the first day of filming, I had this wonderful conversation with Anthony Hopkins, who was playing Lear. And after the conversation, he looked at me and went, "You must be ready for your Lear, for your Othello. You must be ready for your Othello." And I looked at him like, "Yes, yeah." Like, I mean, what do you say when a man like that says that? And then I got back to New York about 3 weeks later or something. I finished filming and I came back, and I suddenly got I was having a conversation with my manager about how, okay, I'm about to start The Low Road. Yeah. I've just done Hedda Gabler in London and stuff. I've really enjoyed filming, you know. After I finish The Low Road, let's focus on filming and stuff just for a while, you know what I mean? Because the play, we'll probably talk about this later, rehearsals and stuff take so much out of you, you know. And I said to my manager, look, barring Othello in the Park, I really don't want to do another play. And a week later, the call came through. They kind of want to meet you for Othello in the Park. So then I sat down with the wonderful Ruben Santiago-Hudson, and we spoke about the play for 2 hours, and just discussing his ideas, my ideas, and I got the call.
Yeah. Because you were both on the same page with your director, right? Talk about those early conversations.
Yeah, it's such a hard play because historically it's gone through so many different shifts. There was a time, 150 or plus years ago, everyone wanted to play Othello. White actors, of course, because black actors weren't playing Othello. I mean, Ruben was telling me all about this. And it's funny because I've written a screenplay about the great Ira Aldridge. And right up to Ira playing it, it was a role that, he took over from the great Edmund Kean. So it was a role they wanted. And then suddenly Ira plays it, and then black guys start playing it, and then Robeson plays it, and suddenly the white actors that wanted to play Othello now want to play Iago. And so for a long time, this play became a vehicle for usually very well-known, famous white actors to showcase themselves as Iago, with the Othello often becoming a sort of afterthought. And that carried on for a while, and then more recently, as things have changed, it's that shift has sort of evened out a bit. So one of the big things I spoke to Ruben about, I said, Ruben, look, we have to bring this back to the love story, right? There's a reason why he called it Othello. There's a reason why that was the role that was coveted for so long. And he agreed because he's a romantic, and he said to me, don't worry, I'll take care of you. Because that's why he hasn't played it. He's never been able to find a director he felt would take care of him in the role. Because it's so hard, because Iago's a phenomenal role. It's the role that gets to talk to the audience for the whole first half. He dictates what's happening. He's moving the chess. We're seduced by characters like that. So I said the only way I could sustain this character, and the only way that it could work, and the only way that Act 5, Scene 2 can work, after I kill her and stuff, spoiler alert, is the only way that can happen is that if we've invested enough at the beginning, literally 2 scenes, of the love these two have together, that the alternate name for this play could be The Greatest Love Story That Never Was. So once I knew he was there, and the other thing I insisted on is that Othello really goes mad. It's not just anger, it's not just jealousy, it's like mad. And he doesn't have to stay there, and what makes this role the hardest role I've ever played is that he's constantly doing that back and forth, mad, sane, angry in love, all the time. But he has to go mad. And if we agree with those 3 things, that you'll take care of me, that we invest in the love story and bring it back to the love story, and you allow me to go wherever that takes us mad, then, and he agreed with all those things. So it was great.
Yeah, because I love seeing the revelations that your Othello goes through between Acts 1 and Act 2, and I've never seen that in any other production. Like you said, how many of you have seen Othello already? How many of you want to go see Othello? Yes. A lot of people are telling me they're trying for the lottery and everything. The lotto. It is the lotto of theater, isn't it? The lottery. Yeah. But I just love how. What's that?
Yeah, I wish I did. I wish I did, mate.
You're all on an even keel now. Like you said, all the characters. It's really interesting. Iago doesn't stand out anymore. You all stand out. Yeah. Which I love.
Including the women.
Yeah,
which is very crucial in this, especially in our time right now. I think it always boggles my mind how people is a shortcut. We're obsessed with shortcuts in general, and in the industry, sadly, people often look for shortcuts, and the shortcut would be to get a couple of mega stars and then say, okay, people are going to come see them, we're going to fill the seats, it's fine. Or you get a director and a production where you just go, actually, no, the most important thing is the whole play. And for the whole play to work, we've got to get the right actors. And for the right actors to work, we've got to make sure that we invest in all of them. And then people come and see a story. They don't come to see a star turn.
Yep.
So.
You had played Othello before. Were you like 20?
I was in college. It was the last show I did at Yale. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember it. I think my I seriously, I don't remember much about it, and I feel sad. I know it did very well because I remember there were lines to come in and see, and I think we might have extended, but I genuinely don't remember anything I did, which is probably good because it must have been shocking what I did at 20. Do you know what I mean? Like, what the hell do I know at 20? But I had the confidence, but probably not the skill set.
So it's funny when you talk to like musical theater actors or other actors, sometimes parts stay in your muscle memory, but there are a lot of actors who will do something again and say, I totally forget the first version of this I did. And it's so interesting that I would think you would hold something, but...
Some roles are still there. I think it depends on how you meet them, where you meet them, how you sing it. I mean, clearly, an indication that I can't remember much is I probably didn't really mine into it. I think, at that age and stuff, it was more presentational, But when I think of the roles that I've really mined into, Hamlet will stay with me forever, whole speeches of it. Don't test me on it, but I think whole speeches of it will stay with me. The big chunks of Henry VI, which you mentioned, which I did closed 10 years ago, will stay with me. But it just depends on, I think it's an indication of how much you've mined into it,
And you're at the right age to do these now.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Look, Othello is one of those roles where, I could play him in 20 years and it'd probably still be okay. I don't think I want to. Yeah. I genuinely think, a lot of people say, it's one of those great roles you can do time. I have no interest in doing it again. I think, I say that now. Talk to me in like 10, 15 years, I might want to revisit it. But the way I feel we've got a great production, and I think I've mined what I want in Othello. And I don't have a burning. The only role I've ever had a burning role to play again is Hamlet, only because it's the most complete role ever written, and that I don't care how well you do it. There's always another version of it you could have done because it's so complete. That's the only role I feel I ever need to come back to.
Because you had just recently worked with Jude Law.
Yeah.
Right. You had done a film version of Obsession, right?
Well, there's a play version that was filmed of
And your
Obsession.
director was?
Eva Van Hove again.
Let's hear you say that name. So I'm sure you and Jude had conversations because Jude Law was here in New York as Hamlet. We all fell in love with him as Hamlet here. What kind of conversations do you have about Hamlet?
Well, it's funny
it a
because
protective role?
It is. We have this. You know, as actors, we're supposed to be generous, right? And we're supposed to want to go and see other actors play roles. Sometimes roles we've played, sometimes roles we want to play, and support them and all that. And I agree with that. Yeah. But there was something about Hamlet, and I was, Jude and I we'd been rehearsing for several weeks and talking and stuff, and I knew he'd played it. We'd asked each other odd questions. Then finally one afternoon, I was like, because there was a Hamlet happening in London with Andrew Scott. And I finally went, are you going to go see it? And Jude was like, I don't know, are you going to go see it? And I was like, I don't know, are you going to go see it? Then he said, I don't think I am. And I went, I know I'm not, And then we had the conversation where there's something about that role that is so, it's like going to see someone else sleep with my wife. It's like I can't. It's so intimate and it takes so much out of you, and you're so proud playing it. It's such a pinnacle that you're like you've arrived. That the idea of someone, and Jude, funnily enough, said that when he was doing his Hamlet, Alan Rickman sent him a note saying, I would love to come see you, but I just can't, because he played it, And so there's something about that role. There is, it's the most brilliant human study I've ever come across. And I think there's a reason why it gets better. Now, not every Hamlet is like this, but it was funny to meet someone else and then hear about someone else who felt the same way.
You're all on the same page. You're also working with some of the greatest actors in this production of Othello. I mean, Corey Stoll, Heather Lind. What's it like sharing the stage with them?
Oh, they're just ultimate pros and very talented and very generous people, and Alison Wright also, and Babbitt. And I mean, there's that's what I came back in my initial point. Bravo for picking a cast, not just a star, Because when you have a cast, it makes life easier because you come and you bounce off someone who's giving you stuff and they bounce off you, and you're generous because you're secure in the fact that you know what you're doing and they know what they're doing. And we have fun also. It's a crazy bunch, Peter J. Fernandez and there's some funny people in there. You need humor in that, especially the more tragic, you really need humor. But ultimately, it's just looking around, and I think people have been commenting on it that I've come to see, saying they can't remember ever seeing such a strong cast, ensemble together. Everyone brings it to the table.
What makes Ruben such a sought-after and wonderful director to work with?
His humanity. He has a real, he's got a very, I love the man. He's very, he's got a lot of, he's macho, he's got that thing. But at the heart, there's a big heart at the heart of that. And I think that's one of the most attractive combinations in people, is when they have this, but there's real warmth. And I think his approach to Othello sort of proves what I feel about him, which is that he's a deep romantic who really wants to tell a love story. But he also understands the politics around it, And I think you just have confidence in him. He's like an NFL coach also. Some days he knows when he has to be the coach. Some days he knows when he has to be the teacher. Some days he knows when he has to be the artist. Some days he knows when he has to be the actor, literally get on that stage and say, do it like this. He doesn't like to do that, in all fairness. But it's great having an actor direct you also. Because I think sometimes directors have never experienced what it's like to be on that stage. I've never experienced. So it's great to have someone that understands. He gives you room. He really gives you a lot of room to try, and then it's like, all right, why not this, So you have a real positive energy. You have a wonderful, healthy ego. I think all the great directors I've worked with have phenomenal egos. You know?
They're in charge.
Yeah, in charge of a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot is hanging on their shoulders. I think you need it. The best directors I've worked with all have this crazy, but it's an ego that's supported by the work.
Yeah.
It's not just one that's born of fear and insecurity, you know.
What was the rehearsal process like? We have a lot of actors here and a lot of actors will be watching around the world. Like rehearsing Othello with that group, where do you start? Do you come in with your lines already memorized? What do you do?
Well, I do. I'm, which is I think is why I got on so well with Ivo, because Ivo wants that. You know, with Ivo Van Hove, if you ever work with him, you actually arrive on the first of rehearsal and you actually start rehearsing in your costumes, and if not on the stage, on a replica of the stage. So there's no sudden thing of tech or dress rehearsal, surprises like that. You're just into it. And they're making adjustments, and you know what I mean? And that's why he loves short rehearsal processes. He doesn't want too much time because you're right in it. And anyway, so it worked really well with him because I've always believed in coming in, if you can. I mean, sometimes schedules don't allow it. I mean, if you're shooting a series where they're throwing lines at you every day and you have a kid at home or a couple of kids, you just don't have the time. I get that, but I don't have a kid, not that I know of. And so I had time. So what I did was I go around the city. My process is really awkward because I think people sometimes want to hear something really fascinating about going to the zoo and watching gazelles or something. And I genuinely just learn the lines. I drill those lines till I could say them doing the washing up or ordering my, drill them. So that when I get into the room, I trust that I have natural instincts and I trust my impulses and I trust my brain. But then ultimately I trust the director and the other actors in the room. And if I know my lines, I can be watching the other actors in the room. I can be watching their reactions as opposed to being stuck in the page. I can be seeing what they're doing and adjust, because you're always going to have an idea of what you want to do. You know, and that's wonderful because directors love you coming in with ideas. But what you have to be is malleable also. If I've come in here thinking this and Corey decides that whatever, and I go, actually, you've got to have the generosity to understand when something better than what you've thought of is being presented to you or something. I always say yes. Ruben was talking to me about that. He says one thing he loves about me is that I'll always try it, even if in my head I'm screaming, no friggin' way. I can't really swear on this, can I? No swearing. Okay, because I have to remember that. I change it. Really friggin' is lovely. It's a nice word. Yeah. It's not a real swear word. And he said he likes that. I always believe in first trying what's thrown at you before you start saying, oh, my character wouldn't do that and all that nonsense. That's just fear. I feel that's just fear. Try what's thrown at you because, sometimes, he's been thinking about it as a director for months before you even knew about it. He's also got the years on you, That actor has his own instincts, which are different from yours. Maybe there's a wonderful alchemy between his instincts and yours. So my whole thing is learn the lines, be limber, and be brave, and come into the room and see what people throw at you. And then it starts forming. It starts, this is a very physical interpretation of Othello. I never once thought, oh, I'm going to be physical with Othello. It just happened in the room when the emotions started coming, different things started happening, and you're open to that because the language is in there. The language then starts leading you. Yeah. The language leads you into even your physical choices, which you can't do unless you're really rooted in them.
Because you like to go to coffee houses, loud places, right?
I love to go to noisy places and learn my lines because if I can do it in those places, when I get to the rehearsal room where it's quiet and focused, it's easy. So that's where I learn my lines, in coffee shops and subways and walking down the street. There's a lot of people in New York and London that think I'm actually mad because they just see me in the corner with my, cortado going.
See, a lot of New Yorkers, you see that when you go to a coffee shop and you watch someone. I recite lines on the street every day, dialogue or whatever.
It's wonderful
or
to
intro.
Just keep it running in your head so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. It's such a big role. Mm-hmm. How challenging is it for you? What are the challenges of this role of Othello?
it's emotionally draining.
Yeah.
Even when I played Hamlet, Hamlet has these wonderful soliloquies that he, when it starts getting really rough, he then looks at the audience and says, to be or not to be. That is the question, help me with that. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or let me talk to you about this, is what he's doing. Othello doesn't have soliloquies, he doesn't. He it's all in his head, it's all in his mind. He's trying to figure it out himself, and then he thinks he's figured it out, and it's like, but it's never like, can I talk to you about this? Can I, there's no, that this too solid flesh would melt or resolve itself. There's no, I'm suffering here. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? There's none of that. He just suffers. So I find it very difficult because there aren't no release valves. There's no escape valves. There's no coming down. It's like he's on that pitch and he's constantly balancing love, hate, murder, redemption, honor, all those things constantly. It's not as big, they're not as, Iago has more lines, Hamlet has more lines, all this, but it's the nature of it, it's the stakes of him that make him really difficult. That's why I'm not in a hurry to play him again. Do you know what I mean?
No, I love how you say there's no release to your character, which is quite interesting, because he's always fighting these different sides through the entire show.
Absolutely, yeah.
Interesting.
Constantly, it's coming at him and he's fighting. I tried once in rehearsal to see if I could say there's a speech he has, why did I marry this honest creature doubtless sees and knows much more than the unfold or curse of marriage that we can call these delicate creatures ours or not. I tried that once to the audience and it just seemed so cheap. It just seemed so, this was in the rehearsal, it just seemed so easy. Yeah. It just seemed I'm letting myself off the hook. And it seemed like I was begging for sympathy. It's not. He doesn't have an awareness of your sympathy. He is his judge and jury of his life, of that island, literally, and of his life. So there is no release valve, so he has to take it on. He has to take the burden. And that's what makes it hard, is not having, because I'm one of those actors, I love doing soliloquies to people. I love seeing their faces and their reactions, But I can't in this one. The only time I get to do that is the very beginning court scene. Her father loved me often fine. But that's only because the audience become the court, as opposed to a soliloquy, which is like you're talking to them, Yeah. That's the only time. The rest of the time it's just him dealing with it. That's what makes it really hard. And he loves her. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, I don't care whatever the motivations are, whether it's right or wrong to kill her. The fact is that he loves her, but he kills her. And you got to resolve that somehow with yourself. And it's never resolved, but I just have to do it. And it's hard.
How long was the rehearsal process?
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Yeah.
When did you feel that you were on the right page? Like you said, I have him now. Was there a point during rehearsal where you said, I have him now?
I knew, not that I have him, but I knew there was a point where I was like, okay, I have the ingredients now. And then let's just see what the casserole is going to turn out to be. Because I know for a long time, the first couple of weeks, I was struggling a great deal with the first half, the general, the guy in command. Because you can't play that. You have to find your version of that. You've got to tap into your version of that. So that, it's funny, I was more at home going to the psychosis and the madness and the whatever than I was with that general, And then I'd say into the third or fourth week, it's funny because Ruben gave me a note and just said, the beginning is really your only chance to be charming. I was like, and that was the key. I was like, okay, I'll just smile. And then suddenly the ease of the ruler came in and the ease of the man who commands thousands came in with that. And it was from that little note of, this is the only chance to be charming. I was like, okay, I know that.
See, isn't it great when you work with a great director who they give you one word that you like, that unlocks everything for you.
Yeah. And it made that make sense. Yeah.
Not only is Shakespeare one of the greatest writers, but do you also think of him as a great director?
Yes, I do. I think.
Tell us why.
As my students here in the front row might know, I've always said that don't. long before Freud and everything like this guy was born and given to us as a gift, a bit like Mozart was and whatever, that for some reason they get it. They get life, they get humanity, and Mozart did it through his music, and Picasso through his art, and Shakespeare with his language. They just get human nature so amazingly. So what does he do? He's gonna put a troupe together. They didn't have the time we had for rehearsal processes. The script, he was writing the stuff on the day. They were getting that stuff and doing it and trying it out. So what does he do if he wants to make sure they get there? He puts the code in the language. He puts the directing code in the lines they have to say. So this theory that Shakespeare doesn't give stage direction except for exit pursued by a bear or something like that, or exit, and it's all it's nonsense. He's giving you directions all the time, in the sound of the words, the length of the words, how many syllables in a word. When he jumps from prose to verse, why does he do that then? Why does he have just a tiny bit of verse, then jumps back to prose? What's going on with you as a person? How do you do those consonant sounds one after the other? What's that telling? I heard thee say, even now, thou likest not that when Cassio left my wife. What didst not like? Do you see what saying those sounds make you do? You're suddenly, what the hell are you talking about? Those are the clues he gives you throughout. I come into murder, because let's embrace what it is, the woman I love, and my speech starts with, it is the cause, my soul. Let me not name it to you, you chaste stars. It's the most monosyllabic speech in Shakespeare. And monosyllabic words, you can't rush them. If you rush them, you garble. So when you have to speak that deliberately, what is it doing to you as you build up the strength to kill your wife? He's giving you a direction of how to start that scene. So that's why I think he's not just the greatest writer, but the greatest director. And in a lot of modern writing, we don't have that. I mean, I love modern writing. I mean, I grew up wanting to be a movie star. I still hope to be. But we're not given writing like that, that lives in the language. The acting for that sort of stuff is all between the lines, as you guys know. It's what you do before you speak, is what you do after you speak, if you speak at all, It's different with him,
That's beautiful. A lot of people actors have found Shakespeare challenging. Just put your hand up. How many people find Shakespeare challenging as an actor? Okay. How many of you don't find it challenging? So it's interesting. So I was just going, so you studied obviously with all these incredible people.
Yeah.
What is the best way into Shakespeare for people like the actors who are struggling with Shakespeare?
I would just say it's a mindset. I think it's ingrained in us very early. It's often taught badly at school. It starts with school. And I mean, I'm not blaming the teachers. I blame the curriculum that says you're supposedly doing, Midsummer Night's Dream, but you only get to do 4 chapters in it, and a teacher reads it out, and you just sit there listening to someone read out Shakespeare, The approach to it is all wrong initially. So there's initially a suspicion, deep suspicion. There's a sense of boredom, because that's probably how the class was. So we get to it as adults, and it's thrown at us, and we're like, well, I don't like Shakespeare, or I don't get Shakespeare. That's what I get, and I just go, why? It's English. Not only English, but the best English ever written. You love the characters, so why can't you connect with how they speak? Why is it a problem when someone gives you the most beautiful imagery to describe? How often in life are we like, God, I wish I could explain this. This is a guy that explains it for you. Wow. So what a gift to be able to have someone put the... Florizel says to Perdita, a young kid, trying to figure out how to say how much what you do still betters what is done. I wish I'd said that at 16 to someone. You know what I mean? I just think that you've got to get over the fact that it's alien to you. You've got to get over the fact that it's something you have to be overly reverential about. You've got to be really brave. You've got to embrace the sounds of it. If there's a k sound and you're angry at someone, it probably is because he's relating it to that very rude word that starts with k. Embrace that. Don't be too cerebral with it. We overthink it. Yeah, you need to do the homework and think it, but it comes down to the sounds and the rhythms and the music, which is another thing Ruben's amazing at, being a musician himself, is the music of it. You can feel when you're going off. There are rules to be learned, don't get me wrong. There's line ending rules, there's all those rules. You can do that in a class. You can do that in less than a semester. You can learn the rules, but then you have to go and do it with bravery and get over the fact that it's alien. Really take your time with it. It's like learning music also. When I play the piano, I don't go, I'm going to just play this whole piece at once. I'll give myself 2 bars for that day if it's really difficult, you know. If it's easier, then I'll give myself longer than that. But just give yourself the time to know. You've got to know. What you have to know is know exactly what you're saying. It's not enough to have a general idea. Why does he use that word? The specificity of the imagery is key to Shakespeare. It's not a general wash. But overall, it's fear. It's fear that has come out of years of being made to think that it belongs to the elite. It doesn't belong to the elite. The people that loved Shakespeare and went there were the people that were slaughtering chickens and bear fighting next door. Those are the people that went. And they weren't even often they'd be in the play would be happening, they'd be doing something else, but they could hear it and understand it. So it doesn't belong to any elite class at all, you know.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. That's great. Go right ahead. You have played the Delacorte before, of course, as Edgar opposite John Lithgow in King Lear. What are your fondest memories of that? And what makes working in the park so rewarding and magical?
Fondest memories.
You were so good in that. What
John.
A gorgeous production.
Oh, it was so beautiful. Fondest memories. I think there was that moment when I walked into the rehearsal room and there was John Lithgow and there was Annette Bening. I was like, Annette Bening and John Lithgow. And then there was a wonderful moment after, because I played Edgar, who gets really muddy.
Yeah.
It was cold. It was a cold production for me because I thought it's summer in the park. I get to wear no clothes. I'm going to be the happiest actor. But it was one of those summers where it rained almost every other show. And if it wasn't raining, there was this sort of like Excalibur like mist hanging everywhere. I was like, what the is going on? And I had to have this mud stuck all over my mouth. And the thing with clay, which is the fake mud, is that it cools when it dries. So I'm already shaking, and this guy comes up and puts this. But there was a day where I came out of my shower and I was going to my dressing room, and Warren Beatty was there to congratulate me. I mean, I just was like, what's going on here? And then another day I came out and this blonde woman rushed up to me and gave me a hug, and it was Meryl Streep. You know what I mean? Those are the sort of moments that happen in the park that are quite ridiculous, you know. But then there's the magic of the park, that is nature listening to theater, you know, and it did happen several times. I don't know if it happened the night you saw it, but there's the blow winds, you know, the storm sequence, and there was a night where a storm was coming in as he was doing that, and people were watching this real storm come, and Lithgow was out there saying, come get me and stuff. And there was a night, I was cold, I wouldn't deny being cold, but there was a light drizzle, and I came out as poor Tom, and I'm supposed to be, and I didn't have to act that part of it. And I felt it was a combination of them getting the story, the audience, but also feeling my discomfort with me. It was the most electric show also. So I think sometimes nature listens to you out there, and it's just wonderful when it does it, as well as the raccoons.
The raccoon family was out Saturday night, just right?
As well as the raccoons.
Tell them, it comes every night.
They come every night. Right? There's a family of raccoons upstage left.
Yeah.
And there's I guess a newborn.
Yeah.
who's a bit smaller than everyone else. And every night around the willow scene, you start hearing this, and it is this baby raccoon, because the others have just taken off. They've gone to go foraging, and this one is trying to get out of the hole, and no one's coming to get her or him. I don't know what the hell it is. It's like, and it's just screaming in such despair, and we can't do anything because you're not allowed to touch them or whatever. You shouldn't, because they're ferocious. But this thing is there, and every night at the same time it decides to start screaming. It's not cute anymore, actually. It was cute for about 2 minutes. And then.
Because Saturday the whole family was here. The mother came out first. We watched the mother come out. Then they all came out afterwards.
And on the second preview or something, I was about to make an entrance with Casio. And just as we're about to enter, a raccoon just enters before us. And it just walks across the stage.
In a key light.
In a key light. And we watched it. 1,900 people are laughing. And then when it got to the end, I started applause. And it was just the best stage cross I've ever seen. So that
Live
was
theater in the park.
You never know.
You know, you recently won an Obie Award for your acclaimed performance of John Blanke in Bruce Norris's The Low Road. Did anybody see The Low Road at the Public Theater? This was stunning. This was so great. What attracted you to that role and to the script?
The script, I was in London at the time, and the script was sent to me. And at the time, I was in the middle of filming and really enjoying not being nervous every time I gave my credit card to pay for something that it might be rejected, which is what theater does to you. And so I was enjoying that, and it's just an easier schedule, do you know what I mean? I was enjoying all that. I was like, I'm not sure I want to do a play right now. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm getting home I got home at about midnight. I said, I'll open my computer. I'll give the first 20 pages a read and see what happens. And I started reading, and 2-3 hours later, I was laughing and rereading parts, and the whole play, read it all in one sitting, because it was literally one of the funniest plays I've ever read, and also so much at the heart of it about what's wrong with equality is the thing about equality we're dealing with. I was like, how has this man managed to, Bruce Norris, to deal with all these issues, to have written this initially 5 years ago, and yet it's like he wrote it yesterday, a bit Shakespearean in that way, and still make me laugh, even though it's so bleak. And it was like Blazing Saddles, you know what I mean? It's like, it was that funny and that irreverent and that dangerous and that. And so the next morning I sent a message to my management. I said, I think we should make this work. And so I was in New York. I had a phone call with Bruce, we talked. And to get his ideas. Then I was in New York briefly. My fiance was opening a show upstate, so I met Michael Greif very briefly for a conversation and a coffee, and I was like, these guys. Michael knew the show he was going to do. I said to him, Michael, it's quite long. This is a 3-hour show. He said, nah. He knew, because in the end it was like 2:25 or something. He just knew how to make a show move, as anyone who's seen his, everything from Rent to Dear Evan Hansen can tell. He just made it move, and they had such confidence in what was a beast of a play, because it's a massive play, that I was like, well, I know, I love the play. As for the character, I was like, I didn't even think of the character, because it just made sense. I got him. I was like, it's so weird to have all this acclaim for a character that came so easily. I got him. I was like, he's funny. I kind of know where he's coming from and all that.
Explain who the character was.
The character is John Blanke. He was captured and put into slavery as a kid, and then got adopted by an earl who made him his heir. But when the earl died, the earl's family got rid of him and sold him back into slavery. And when you meet him, he's on an auction block, and then you find out that he pretends to be deaf. That's how he gets by in life. But then the very second scene, he reveals that he's not deaf. He's actually the best spoken, most intelligent person in the play. And it's then the sort of relationship he has with the guy who bought him, and it's a hilarious relationship. And he reconnects with the woman of his dreams now, who he lost when he was 14. And he's the voice of, it's sort of conscience of the piece. He's the conscience of the piece in America today. The fact that it's been, from the beginning till now, has always been based on the dollar. You know, all the major choices and all that has been about whether you break it down to a moral argument or whether it's right to have slavery or not, or abolitionist movements or suffragettes movement. It's all about the dollar. And that's what this play does. It's all about, does it make someone enough money, or does it lose too many people too much money? And that's what this piece deals with. So I really wish it could have gone on. But, you know, it was such a powerful piece. It'll have another life somehow, you know, so we'll see.
I just love, you said you got him right away, because it was the perfect melding of like material and actor. I mean, it just seemed seamless.
It seems so. I mean, I was genuinely, which is always the best sort of surprises, when you're genuinely surprised when suddenly, I remember waking up and suddenly it's like, congratulations on your Lortel nomination. I was like, then congratulations on your drama league, and then on the Obie, you know, and I was like, wow. Because you strive for certain roles. Certain roles you're like, I'm gonna work by, and no one gives up. And then the other ones that you're like, oh yeah, this is cool. I'm having a great time. I'm having with that cast, Harriet Harris, you know, and all that, Kevin, and
then the accolades,
you know,
come.
and then the accolades come. So it makes you realize it's just not ultimately that important, because it's nothing to do with you in many ways, you know.
Sure. You know, our audience is made up of actors, so I want to ask you about auditioning. Were you always good at auditioning? Are you good at auditioning? Because I know a lot of actors say, you know, I can act. I'm a really good actor. But what terrifies them sometimes is what's behind the door when you go there. So
if ever I'm lucky enough to have an award season like this and maybe win an Oscar or something, it's not about the Oscar, I don't care. All I care about is that I will never have to audition again. That is all that represents to me. I hate auditioning.
Really?
I really don't enjoy it. Wow. I have learned how to seem like I enjoy it. I don't enjoy it, I don't. I think it's such an artificial, I mean, what are you going to do? You're not going to bring in dozens of actors and workshop with them all the time, although some people do, which is wonderful. I don't like auditioning. I find it easier to audition for plays, because in preparing for an audition for a play, because of the nature of how plays are written, it's about the character work. The audition for a play is sort of an extension of your work you did at home. So I understand, because I have a great, but auditioning for film and TV, whereas usually you don't have even that much material necessarily, and it's usually about a look or about a whatever technique. I loathe it. I don't. Some people say, oh, I love audition, and I look at them like they're from the Klingons or something. I don't. But my advice if I were to give advice about it, is that to think of it as an extension of the work you've done at home. The moment you start thinking, what do they want and what can I give them in that room, you're in trouble. The moment you think, okay, I'm going to go in there and do my work, and I know that sounds so obvious, but really, ask yourselves how many times you've gone into the audition room and done that, as opposed to trying to give them something or trying to put out your best self and all that nonsense. How many times have you actually gone in there and just said, I've been rehearsing, working on this, I'm just going to come in here and do it and be ready to leave afterwards and not think about it. I mean, I think the minute you can do that more and more, your chances are going to improve a great deal, because often we start letting other things, oh, it's this director I'm meeting, or this job would mean so much to me if I got it, or the character says in it that he's wearing glasses in the breakdown. Should I wear my glasses? All these things that don't matter. Yeah. They can put glasses on you if they want you, later. Go in there and be ready to put yourself in the position to do your best work, And if you can, ask them if you can just self-tape.
Because that's the new now.
That's the new. I love self-taping.
Yeah.
You just fiddle with it. You try it a bit. You do a few takes. You say, okay, send it, and then it's out of your mind. As opposed to that slightly depressed feeling of going into a room and knowing you haven't given them anything. And that's, you see, look at the terminology I use, giving them. Who cares? It's not about giving them. It's about you doing. And there's a reason why you talk about, oh, it's always the one I didn't want. You know, the one you didn't want is the one that you were relaxed and you were yourself and you said, I'm just going to give a take and get out of there. But you can't manufacture that. If you try to go, oh, I'm going to be really relaxed in the room, and you go in there relaxed, you lose your lines. You can't. You're either that or you're not. You know what I mean? And then there's the other thing I will say to actors, which I've learned over the years, is that if the role is supposed to be yours, you can go in. And I've had some of the, my first audition with the public was one of the worst auditions, and I got the gig, and it's led to my career here, whatever. Evo, who I've now worked with twice, when I first auditioned for him, it was for The Crucible, and I didn't get it. But then he called me in for Hedda Gabler, and I got that like that. You know, if the job is yours, you're gonna get it. If it is not yours, you can give, I've given some of the best, I know best auditions out. I know the directors, and that's sort of what happened with Crucible, is that I know I gave a great direction, but it wasn't that was not my role. When the right role came up, it was that simple, you know. So give yourselves a break and just understand that it is a numbers game, and it is a numbers game, you know. And if you have the right representation, the right people backing you, they know that also. All you have, the only responsibility is make sure you've gone in there and left your carbon footprint, that you've gone in there and left the right impression. That's all you can do, because having been on the other side of the table, you know, I've been cast early in certain things, and they've said, can you come in and read with, and seen amazing people come in, do everything right, but they're not going to get it for this reason or that reason, or too tall, or looks too much like that person, or, oh, I loved everything about them, but the energy isn't right for you. But the audition was brilliant. And so that's the other thing I'm going to tell you, is don't go home and start second-guessing yourself. If you feel you've done a good job, you have. Just because you didn't get it, don't equate that to you haven't got a good job. It's like, I don't know, if you guys read reviews, I don't, it's like, you know you're in a good play, you've done a great job, but because one individual or two out of says whatever, you start second-guessing yourself, and, oh, it's the same thing with auditions. You know, if you feel you've done that and done it, but you didn't get the job, it's not because you were wrong and didn't do a good job. You could have done the best job and got it, and you could have done the worst job and still got it, you know. That's
terrific advice. Thank you for that. That's from him.
Yeah.
You know, I want to go back to the beginning. Growing up, where did your love for performing begin, and what were the earliest creative outlets for you?
I guess I don't want to say I always performed as a kid, because that's not, I wasn't in Annie or anything like that, but I did school plays, you know, and I just saw it as part of the school curriculum. You do plays they ask you to do, and you do them. But I was a bit of a strange kid in the sense that, as far as I remember though, all my childhood games were not friggin' imaginary rabbit or something. It was, God, I love that word, frigging. It was
your favorite word, right?
My games were reenacting what I'd seen on TV. So I remember trying to make my cup move with the force for ages.
Did you perfect that?
You'd be surprised. I can do something. I remember we had a lovely old guy that used to garden for us. I remember getting him to carve out my version of I don't know why I was watching Dirty Harry at that age, of a Magnum whatever. I'm practicing, you know, make my day, you know. They were all reenactments of things I'd watched and seen on TV. That was where my imagination lay, was perfecting these scenes in my head. Yeah. So it was always there, but then I didn't really pursue it, because as an adolescent, I went to boarding school in England, and there was the cool group who did sport and the not cool group who did theater. So I did sport, but I would always go watch the theater. And then I would always get into trouble because I would break curfew and watch the Oscars, which in England would be at midnight, our time, you know, or watch TV shows and really watch them. So there was a side of me that subconsciously knew I wanted to perform, but it didn't become really conscious till I was actually in the States and I did a play and I felt that buzz of walking out on stage and going, this is what I want to do. And then it's funny because literally soon after that was when I was offered a scholarship to drama school. So the decision was taken out of my hands. But I put myself in the position to explore that without necessarily knowing that it's what I wanted to do.
You know, you're an associate artist of the Royal Shakespeare Company, and you received 2 Olivier Awards for playing Henry VI in their productions of Part 1, 2, and 3. How challenging and rewarding were those tasks, and what were the biggest life lessons you took away from the RSC?
Well, God, those are big questions. Specifically about the histories.
Yeah.
Both of those Oliviers were ensemble related, which comes back to my point about the team. I don't care how good an actor you are. Yeah. You will be better if you're surrounded by better people. It's as simple as that. I don't care how good you are. That experience we did, first of all, Sir Michael Boyd, who's a dear friend and a genius director, was running the RSC, and he decided to do all the history plays. So basically, if you go chronologically from Richard II to Richard III, with the same company of actors, over 2 years. That can't happen in this country. You know, you just don't know. It's like public funding. That's what makes that happen. But on top of that, he chose to cast unknowns in a place where he could have easily picked up the phone and called in Ralph Fiennes or all these geniuses of acting. He chose to cast unknowns and create an ensemble. It was the most magical single experience of acting of my life, the hardest, because we would do 3 shows in a day. We would have weekends where we call the marathon weekends, where you do by the time we had all the shows running, all 8 shows from Thursday to Sunday. So you get to the theater on the marathon days were Saturday and Sunday. You get to the theater, I'd get to the theater to warm up at about 9 a.m. I'd leave the theater at close to midnight, all day. Part 1, 2, 3, you know. But it was the most amazing, it made us believe, I'll speak for myself, it just made me believe. I mean, I came to the RSC from the States saying to my friend, if it takes me 3 years to camp out of the door, I'm going to get in, because all my heroes went through that door. As it happens, my agent, who's my agent to this day, Teresa Hickey, the first audition she got me was for the RSC, and I got in. Playing tiny roles, the longest 15 months of my life. You know, tiny, but I got to watch these amazing actors. So for us to come back and be given Henry VI was amazing. And it was a life-changing thing because it changed our lives as actors in England, because you're now on that. I actually am on a stamp. So my grandkids will be able to, when they're looking at me thinking I'm not all that, I'll be able to bring out my stamp and go, I'm on a 78 pence stamp.
So there.
So there. What have you done? So it was life-changing and beautiful. The RSC, what it meant to me was, you know, my first voice lesson was with Cicely Berry and the great late John Barton. Yeah. These were the people that were schooling me through verse speaking and how I make choices and using my own voice. These are the people I'd go to rehearsal, finish rehearsal, okay, you have your hour session with John Barton. Or you have Cicely Berry to do that, you know. It was really magical, and I'm really honored that they've rewarded me with an associate artist thing. But it was life-changing. I mean, the actor I am is because of that. It doesn't matter whether I'm doing film, TV, or whatever it is, that going school outside of school that I had working with those guys, and the fact they nurtured me from spear carrier to Ophidius to Henry VI, that transition, it all sort of happened. Yeah.
That's how you work your way up, like spear carrier number 3.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's the best way you really should learn,
well,
right? Because you watch. And
you
learn.
watch. I was on the side. I chose to watch. I'm not saying everyone that was in my position did watch, but I knew I had to watch these guys. Even the stuff I didn't like, even the guys I didn't rate, even though I'm in my young, ego-driven mind, I was thinking I could do that better. But I was still watching them and learning from them. If you can do it better, what is it about what they're doing you don't like?
Yeah.
That's a lesson then. Tell me what it is you don't like. Form that in your head, and then form how would you do it if you're so good, you know? And you learn all these lessons watching these guys.
So that's what spear carriers do.
That's what they should.
They watch, right?
They should. You have a lot of time to watch them.
I'm going to watch spear carriers and Shakespeare shows now, as you're watching all these stars saying, I could do that.
Yeah, I could do that better. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some of your other work. And just tell me what comes to mind, a story or a memory. The film John Wick, Chapter 2. John Wick fans?
Yeah.
Opposite Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves is so cool. He's
Yeah.
made the pact with the devil. He just looks so young still. It's ridiculous. Really ridiculous. You're like, what the?
The movie star pact.
The movie star pact, yeah. What memory that comes from that?
You wanted to do...
I wanted to.
Yeah.
What happened was I was at home on an evening off watching, flicking through Netflix or something or whatever, and I saw John Wick, the first one. And I watched it going, watching it, and then I was like, because I grew up on the Chow Yun-fat and John Woo movies, or Hong Kong movies, and I don't know if you guys know. And I watched it, I was like, this is amazing. And the next day I emailed my agent and my manager and said, if there's a sequel to this, please get me into this. Which you do as an actor. And they're probably in the offices going, yeah, okay, I'll just wave the magic wand, like. And then, I'm not lying, because I saw the film late, like 3 months later, I got an audition for it. For the second one, and I was like, oh my God. And then, again, this is another thing, if it's yours, it's yours. I auditioned, brilliant audition first time, if I may say so myself.
Sure.
Didn't hear a peep. Nothing. Gone. Months. 6 months later, I auditioned through my manager here, Meg. Then 6 months later, my agent in London calls and says, okay, so they're doing John Wick 2. And they sent me, I was like, Teresa, I've auditioned for this role. She goes, well, they want to see you, whatever. So I did a tape this time. The next day, Chad Stahelski, the director, was on Skype to me saying, I want you to do this. So I went through it and didn't get it. It was going elsewhere. But for some reason, he wasn't happy or something with who they had, or they hadn't found. He saw my tape, and he tells me the story that his wife, who does a lot of stunts and stuff with him, was watching the tapes, and she was like, Chad, come look at this guy. And he looked at it and he said, get me on the phone. It was that quick. So I sent the tape like on a Wednesday. On Thursday morning, I was speaking with Chad, and then I was flying off to Rome to film it. So that was, and for me, and this is another thing, is my flight was on the day. Do you remember that horrible snowstorm in January in 2016 that closed America?
Yes.
But thank God I was living in New York, because it's one of the few cities that can
You could get out
of
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they know how to deal with snow. So it looked like I might not make it, and then everything was hinging on connecting flights and getting there on time, and it all worked out. But there's nothing like turning up and in Rome, filming in Rome. And the main scene for my characters is that these deserted baths that are thousands of years old, and there was a rock concert scene, and they're playing, and there's a red carpet, and I'm there in my suit, tailored suit, and I'm just going, this is ridiculous, so. It was my first big budget sort of thing, so it was really good fun.
I love how you put stuff out in the universe and it comes back to you.
It's weird. If it's yours, it's yours. If it's not, there's nothing you're going to do about it.
Well, let's talk about film and TV then. I love to ask stage actors, what's it like when you first get on those film sets? Did you grasp filmmaking right away, or?
No.
Okay.
I think
Most
I think
don't.
it's a very
Yeah.
different skill set. It's the same world, but a different skill set. Somehow I fluked into a couple of things early, because when I moved to New York, I realized after my first few auditions, I had no idea what I was doing. But somehow I managed to, again, it's down to a director seeing you. I remember I did this film, Exam.
Yeah.
Brilliant film. And playing the lead in it. And I don't know what I was doing. But Stuart, who's become a dear friend, the director, just liked, he described it as saying, it's like, for him, he thought a younger Sidney Poitier was in front of him, when actually what was in front of him was an actor going, I don't know what I'm doing, and he liked my suit.
Okay, see?
He liked the suit and shirt tie combination I wore, because that's how they actually dressed my character. It's weird how these things work because I didn't know what I was doing. Before that, my first TV, again, was a lead in a miniseries Thaddeus O'Sullivan directed in Dublin, and I remember, I don't know how I got that gig, because it was such a hard role, and I'd come fresh from theater, I didn't know what I was, but again, he saw something, maybe the vulnerability of not knowing what I was doing, he liked about it. And then I come to the States and I try to book a guest star in some show I don't even watch, and I can't even do that, you know. And then I got called in for this pilot, Murder in Manhattan. And it didn't go, but the character, the day I got called in, I'd got 3 or 4 texts from friends who are fellow actors going, dude, I've just been called into this thing, but I'm reading this character, man, it's you. It's you. I was like, what? I got called in, and literally I sat there with the director and producers, and I just knew it was mine because it fit, you know. But it's a different skill set. It's taken me a lot of time to trust my instincts with it, to trust that Ed Hall, the son of the great Sir Peter Hall, said to me, because he used to be an actor, he said, film acting is manipulation. You have to be very good at manipulating a camera and making it seem that you're just being natural. And I actually agree with that. I know a lot of film actors wouldn't agree with me at all. But there's something, if I was doing a play with you and I had to say something really important to you about, you know, this guy's gonna kill you and pick up by water. You know, I'd probably do that in a play. This guy's gonna kill you, right? If I was doing a film, that's a lot of faffing around. What I'd probably do is, this guy's gonna kill you. Because the camera needs to, do you know what I mean? It needs to have time. It needs to come in. You need to seduce it. If I do this and that,
it's too busy.
It's too busy, you know? And, or knowing the words in a sentence where if I'm looking down here, they always love when you're elsewhere. And then just knowing when you look up at it. If I was doing a play, I'd look up whenever you know what I mean? Because it's all organic. But in a film, you codify, you bring it, you narrow it down to these beats. Jimmy Stewart, I did this, finally after, I'll come back to this, but finally after having all these disastrous auditions here and worrying that Meg, my wonderful manager, was the next phone call would be the one she fired me. And she finally, my agent at the time and her, got me into a class with Bob Krakauer. And if you can take his class, take it. Yeah. And I remember Bob saying to me early on, after eviscerating me my first take, because it was awful. Because what he does, he films you and then you discuss it and you come back. And I remember in the elevator, after he had destroyed me the first class, in the elevator coming up the next day, he said, if you can learn how to stop being a character and just be a person, you're going to book work the whole time. And I think that's a very big key part of acting and film and TV as opposed to theater. You need to transform in theater. You need to characterize. The minute the camera sees you being a character, it's over in film and TV. During the course of that, 3 day, 4 day, I don't know, I can't remember, I booked 3 things back to back with Bob after just that lesson of, because he teaches how to beat to beat to beat. Take his class if you can. And then ages later, about a year later, I love watching documentaries of actors on talking pictures and stuff. You find them on YouTube free of charge. It's great to watch. And I remember Jimmy Stewart talking about how he was filming something late in his career in Argentina, and this local came up to him and said, Mr. Stewart, man, I loved this film you did. I can't remember the name of the film. I can't remember what you said in the scene, but there was this image where you did, and he described picture to picture to picture in the scene. And that's what Bob was saying. He's like, it's these beats, these pictures you make. Cameras aren't continuous. They're not. They're very fast pictures. So it's about the reason why this guy isn't going to kill you, doesn't work. There's no picture. There's no moment. This is the picture. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Learning that, but I know this in my head, but the number of times I still go into meetings and don't do that, because I'm thinking about, but if you can find a way of beat to beat and finding the pictures, that's what they look at and go, that's the guy, that's him. I loved what you did there. And those beats don't have to be moved, they can be something you do. I just did something as Ed recently. It was just a guest star in Quantico and stuff, and the director told me, my God, when you did that, there's a bit where I mimic the guy talking to me, and I had this idea of, ooh, I remember when Eddie Murphy would play the white guy in Saturday Night Live, and he had this really weird voice. It's like, well, how are you there? Going on and on. And he'd do these R things, and they're like, well, let me consider my options, was my line. And I really went over the top with it, because I went from this straight guy and just went, let me consider my options. Totally over the top, but it was a beat and a moment, and he said that got you the job.
Wow.
So find the beats, I would say that in camera to film, when I remember to do it, because sometimes I don't, and take away the whole thing that you can go in there and be awful and you just look right and you are exactly the energy they want and you flubbed your lines and they still hire you. Take away that. What you can control is finding those beats to be, really read the beats to beats, you know. And I sent that Jimmy Stewart thing to Bob, and he now uses it, apparently in the beginning of all his classes, that tape of what he's about to teach them. Because that is that, you know.
So be a person, not a character, and make the pictures and
make the pictures.
Find the beats.
That's how I would put it. You know, someone else might not, but if you can remember to do that and just know it's all about knowing when you look at the camera, when you don't, and then being very relaxed. Relaxation is absolutely key. The camera is like in real life, the camera is something to be seduced, and we're most seduced by people that seem at most at ease with themselves, you know? Yeah. And the more you can get that is seductive, then it comes, they can't wait to get to your close-up. And if you have people that can't wait to get to your close-up, you've probably booked the job, you know?
That's great. You know, I had David Tennant here. What was it like being a part of the world of Doctor Who? You did it with Matt Smith,
I did it
right?
with Matt Smith, not
Okay.
with David. But David and I think we did a couple of radio plays.
Yeah.
He's a sweet human
He's
being.
great.
He's a great guy. Doctor Who, for me, I'm, you know, I might get into trouble here.
Yeah, it's all right.
I was more of a Star Wars and whatever, you know.
Okay.
I didn't really...
Doctor Who fans here?
So
Okay.
I got the job for the Doctor Who, and I was like, oh, great. You know, for me, it was another job. And then people out of the... I have open shows playing some of the greatest roles in Shakespeare, and the people waiting outside have a Doctor Who poster. I was like, really? Do you know what I mean? I feel a bit like the Alan Rickman character in Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
You know, I played Richard III, you know. That's how I feel. I was like, okay, I'll sign you.
You have to embrace that.
You have to.
Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart were here too, and they were the same way. But they're like, you
Gandalf
know,
and
it's a whole other
Jean-Luc
world.
Picard,
but they're like,
and you have to be grateful to
yeah.
it because you know they're fans. They're people that enjoyed it, and you know.
But I love that.
But
One
it
of the
is
greatest roles in Shakespeare.
and
Here
then
the Doctor Who.
They have the Doctor Who character. Like, oh, okay, I'll do that.
But it must be like one of those check-off points. Like, I was in Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, my nephew's excited about it, and people are excited. Not just it's not just young people excited. Like you know, there are a lot of Doctor Who fans out there. You know, so. No, it's great. It's great. It's all building the album of your life, isn't it? It's all those snapshots, the album of your life that you can write really little notes about, you know, as you go along.
I love that, the snapshots of your life.
Yeah.
One of your latest TV projects is on right now. It's on Sundance TV, the BBC series The Split. What can you tell us about that and who you play?
I play Xander Hale, who owns a law firm. It's a great series written by Abby Morgan.
Yeah.
With the ridiculously talented Nicola Walker in the lead. Just one of the great actors, period, around.
Yeah.
And it's all about divorce law. Yeah. So it's fun stuff. So it's in the world of divorce, it's in the world of divorce law, but it looks at it through the prism of a family of sisters and their mother and their absent dad that comes back. And I own a law firm that Nicola works for, and he's a really quirky character. They sort of developed as the series went on. And I sort of, you know, I'm supposed to be the youngest ever CEO or whatever of a law firm and a genius, but I'm really quirky. So it was great to play a character that's sort of out of left field, as it were. But it's a real study about relationships in this wonderful world of legal world also. It's a nice mixture, which only very few writers can do so well. Abby Morgan is one of those that surprises you. You just find so much heart in very recognizable structure, but she just takes it much deeper. And it's been a huge success in London, and they've commissioned it for second season, and I think it's about to end in Sundance. I think 1 or 2 more episodes. Yeah.
It's a great series. You can find it online or on TV. It's really, really great.
Yeah.
You talked about Quantico and Madam Secretary, and do you learn lines fast like for TV?
I learn lines. I can probably learn a Shakespearean monologue faster for some reason than 8 lines on it. I can't.
In a TV show, right?
I don't know why I find it harder to connect the dots. There's something, I think it's the musicality of verse that makes it easier. But I'm overall, along the prism of speed in learning lines, I'm lucky to feel like I'm quite high up there, thank God, you know, because that's where my work is, you know, is in getting those lines down, you know. I've actually said no turning up to auditions if I think there's no way I can get any of this into my body. I'll just say I'd rather not do the audition, you know.
Because we have a few questions from the audience. One was, when you arrive on a TV show, like as a guest star, you meet these people who have been in this show forever.
Yeah.
It's like, hello, how are you? Take your scene.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy that?
No, it's like first day of school. It really is like first day of school. Yeah. But what's great is that the most interesting writing in that episode is for the guest star. So you get to come in, do your thing, win an Emmy, and then get out, you know.
I love that. Another question is, how do you compare working in British theater to American theater?
British theater, usually longer rehearsal processes, and American theater is probably a bit more experimental overall, you know. British theater, you have this, you know, and I've been spoiled. The places I've worked, I can't speak for the fringe scene, which is what you would call off Broadway here. I've been spoiled in the National and stuff, where you have 5 or 6 weeks rehearsal, you're government subsidized, you know, you're working with a conveyor belt of all the people, some of the people that you wanted to become an actor for. So I have a very skewed vision of it. But overall, I'd say there's a bit more time, a bit less stuff unpaid. There's more paid stuff there. It might not be great, but people tend to, you know, I think that comes with government subsidies and things like that don't exist. It boggles my mind, and I have such huge admiration for actors in New York. I mean, making their own work, losing money doing it, 2 jobs while they're doing it, 2, 3 jobs while they're in plays that are reviewed by the New York Times, you know, and I just go, I'm so glad. I don't know if I would have stuck with it. I can only say to you guys that are New York actors that do that and have the second job, and I have the deepest, and I'm not just saying, the deepest admiration and awe for that. And I just wish it were an industry that was fully a meritocracy. You know, it isn't, sadly. So you just gotta, I've said it to I don't know if I said it to my class, but I taught for 1 semester, this semester in Atlanta, first time I've ever done it, and it was great. But I said if you can look in the mirror every morning and ask yourself and find a way to be honest with yourself and still say, do I want to do it, and say yes, then do it, because it can just happen. You wake, all the jobs, I mean, when I think of every job I've got, I've woken up that morning not knowing I'm going to have that job. You've woken up that morning unemployed. And then a phone call happens that takes you to Rome to work with Keanu Reeves. A phone call. That's how it can happen, you know. So I would say, if you're being honest with yourself and the answer is still yes, then please keep the faith. And it's hard, and the reward, the gratification, you should be looking in the mirror also and just saying, well done, you did it again for another day, because it is not easy.
That's great. This is part of the question you just answered. First of all, someone said this is the best production of Othello they've ever seen, so that's number 1. Go right ahead. And the bit of advice you just gave, what character roles would you still love to play? Is there a dream role
in
for
Shakespeare
you?
or?
Anything.
Well, in Shakespeare, Macbeth, do you know it's weird? Yeah, Macbeth and Coriolanus. And it's weird, once I'm done with those two, I don't think I need, at least now I don't feel I need, I'd like to have one more shot at Hamlet, maybe. But it's the only role on earth I've ever wanted. But really, Macbeth and Coriolanus in Shakespeare. I'd love to have a go at Stanley Kowalski. I'd love, and I don't need it to be all set in Harlem and all. I don't care. It just cast me if you want to do it. I'd like to have a go at that. As far as the classics that exist, those are right now. If you were to, you've thrown me sort of in front of a bus. I've had to think really fast. But those are the 3 roles that as far as the classical or the known world exists, that I'd like to have a go at right now.
That's a great mix of roles.
It's a mix of roles, yeah. Yeah,
That's
couldn't be
great.
more different.
Another question, do you have a favorite calming or centering focusing technique that you use?
I believe I meditate pretty much every day, and find your form of meditation. But deep breathing is enough for me. There's always got to be a time when I just have to shut out. One of the best things of the apartment we just moved into is the spare room, and being able to shut out the world and just be there for a few minutes, whether it's 5 minutes or 50. Just take some time for yourselves. And that's part of that thing of congratulating yourselves. You're still breathing, you know what I mean?
Beautiful. This is from somebody, a very young person who's hasn't found their network or their people yet in this business. What advice would you give? How does one go about finding the right kind of people to work with in this business?
I think make sure you're in a city you want to be in.
Yeah.
Happiness, God, it sounds so. But genuinely, if you're in an environment you want to be in, you're not just thinking of it as a means to an end. You're in a place where you love to be there. And if you love to be there, you make the right connections with the right people. And connections in this business doesn't mean they have to be in the industry. Someone who's a banker that says, oh my God, you're really good. The next thing you do, can you invite me? That means as much as an actor saying it to you. So find the people that, just like the city, you have to narrow it down. The city you want to be in, the neighborhood you want to be in, the people you want to be around. And the happy self, then you don't put all your eggs in one basket. But crucially, brings us nicely back to meditation, the you that's happy, the you that was born before you decided to become an actor and all these dreams, is totally independent from your acting or your work or these people. You gotta cultivate that, because if that's dependent on you working, you're screwed. Because even if you're working now, there'll be a point where you're not working, whether because you're the hot thing or you're too old in this industry that is scared of, Cultivate that thing that makes you happy. For me, a perfect day is when I can read a book and have coffee. I swear to God, as long as I can do that, so cultivate that. Everything else is white noise, including, I hate to say, even this industry. It's just what you do. It isn't who you are. It's just what you do. It's what you've chosen to do. But if this thing in the middle of that isn't strong, all that happens is that this is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller till that doesn't exist anymore. And that's what happens with the madness of this industry, is when you've lost that, So cultivate that. That's what I'd say.
Advice. Great advice, right?
Yeah.
Just leading into, making your own work happen too. You have a production company, I know. Is it with your sister?
My sister and my brother. Yeah. We founded, it's called Tudor House. We've got one of my sisters who's just been made the first Black British ambassador to Mozambique. She also happens to have a couple of screenplays in production. But one of her scripts, we're in partnership with Lionsgate doing one of her scripts. Something I've written, I wrote a screenplay about Ira Aldridge.
Yes.
Research,
wonderful actor.
And the script I wrote is now being read by some people, being pushed by some people. So it's wonderful, because we're in a time when you have to make your own work also. And if I had thought, if I write this, who will do it? I would never have written it. Just write it down first. Deal with that next. Write it down, A dear friend, Joe, a friend of mine here who works at the Public, had a dream to do a documentary, and you had to do it first. Who picks it up? Who distributes it? Worry about that later, but you had to make the documentary first. Make it first, and then worry about the rest later.
Beautiful. My final question is, what is the best bit of advice that you've been given, either personally or professionally, that you live by?
Wow. This is about, I don't know if I'll probably go home and think, damn, I should have said this instead. But in that spirit of making sure you surround yourself with the right people, my agent, who's been my agent to this day, I remember there was a period I was going through this really horrible period, and Teresa, I wanted to take a job that has been offered to me, and she knew it wasn't the right job. And she knew there wasn't another job there, but she knew that wasn't the right job. And she said, I'm going to believe in you even if you can't right now. So be around people that say that to you, because it's faith. And faith doesn't have proof. That's why it's called faith. And that's why it's a vocation, not a job. So that was one of the greatest things, is to understand that wherever you're at mentally, if you look around and there's still people that believe in you, then you're good.
I have been doing this. Clap, please. That was the best. I had been doing this for 26 years, and I have to tell you, this afternoon was perfect.
Oh, wow.
Your insight to all these actors that are here and watching around the world, it was a master class. I thank you. You're in the middle of doing Othello in the Park. You opened last night. You have a day off today. You spent it here with us. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. This has been wonderful. If you haven't seen him in Othello, go see him in Othello.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
The very best.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.